If you're watching this in the middle of having a rough time with anxiety, maybe you've had a panic attack recently, maybe you can barely leave the house, maybe you feel like something is seriously wrong with you, I want you to know something. I've been there. Not in some abstract way. I mean, I've had panic attacks where I felt like I was dying or going crazy. I've stood on a subway platform in a panic, completely frozen, unable to get myself to get on the train. I've bawled my eyes out into a pillow, wondering if I was losing my mind. I know how awful it feels, and I want you to know that I found a way out. I haven't had a panic attack in around 10 years, and that's what my whole channel is about: overcoming anxiety. My name is Winston Janis. I'm a licensed therapist, and I've helped thousands of people with their anxiety. And I'm also a certified mindfulness meditation teacher. But this first video isn't about any of that. It's about my own story. Facts, knowledge, techniques are great, but part of what's helped me was hearing other people's stories, because then I really knew what was possible. I knew that if they could do it, I could do it. And if I could do it, you can do it too. So back around 2014, I had just moved to Boston with my family. I'd enrolled at Boston University to get a second master's degree. We had a 1-year-old son at the time at home and a second baby on the way. I was having doubts about the direction of my career. School was overwhelming. And looking back, there was this enormous weight of stress that was bearing down on me. But at the time, I didn't think of it like that. I didn't think, of course you're stressed. This makes total sense. Instead, there was this awful, nameless feeling. A feeling that something was off, that something was wrong, that I wasn't okay, that there was something seriously wrong with me. And here's something I want to say to you directly right now. If you're in that place, look at your life circumstances and ask yourself, does your anxiety kind of make sense? Because so many people I've worked with in therapy believe they're broken or that something's chemically wrong with them. But when we start looking at what's actually going on in their lives, it all begins to make sense. Anxiety is usually a very rational response to circumstances that feel overwhelming or out of control. That realization alone, of course I feel this way, can bring more relief than you'd expect. But at the time, I couldn't see that. And so the feeling grew. The what if questions started showing up. What if something's wrong with me? What if I'm sick? What if I lose control? What if I go insane? Looking back, those thoughts were the seeds that fueled the fire of my anxiety. And every time I checked in with myself, like, do I feel okay? Is the anxiety still there? Not only was it still there, it was a little bit bigger. I was watering those seeds without even realizing it because I was starting to become anxious about being anxious. I was creating a vicious circle, a negative feedback loop. So this first panic attack happened during a routine vaccine appointment. I was sitting in the waiting area afterwards. The nurse wanted me to stay for about 10 minutes just to make sure I was okay and didn't have an allergic reaction or something. And of course, my mind just locked onto this idea that I was going to have an allergic reaction. Part of me knew that was super unlikely, but another part of me couldn't think about anything else. Before you knew it, I started noticing this tingling in my hands, and it grew stronger, and my hands felt like they were vibrating. My heart was pounding. I got up to find the nurse, and my vision started tunneling. Everything was going black at the edges, and I genuinely thought I was dying. That in the next few seconds, it was all going to be over. The nurse had me lie down, put an ice pack on my head, gave me some water. Slowly, the symptoms faded. I remember just feeling really relieved that I was still alive. After that, I tried to just move on but the feeling that something was off just stayed with me. The second panic attack hit in the middle of a classroom. I was asking my professor a question in front of everyone. Mid-sentence, when I got this jolt of panic, it just shot through my body. I had to just get up and walk out of the room right then. I couldn't even finish the sentence. The class must have been really confused about what just happened. I remember I was feeling really confused myself and afraid of what was happening to me. The third one broke me. The next morning, I was still rattled. I had barely slept. I didn't want to go to class, but I forced myself anyway. I took the subway like I did every day. It was rush hour, the train was packed, and I was pressed up against strangers with just no room to move. The train went over a bridge and stopped. Just hung there, motionless, and something in me cracked. I felt totally stuck and trapped. My mind screamed that I had to get off that train right now or I was going to die. I reached for my headphones. I was desperate to find anything to hold myself together, to distract myself, but I couldn't even work my phone because my mind was spazzing out and my hands felt too shaky. Somehow, I hung on until we reached the next stop. I got off and I just sat down on the nearest steps, completely in the way of like hundreds of annoyed commuters trying to get around me. I just called my wife at the time to come get me. When I got home, all I could do was cry. At this point in my life, I already had a master's degree in counseling. I had experience as a therapist. I was supposed to be a stable person who understood this stuff. And somehow, in the middle of living it, I'd forgotten everything I knew because there was such a big difference between understanding the concepts and actually living through anxiety firsthand. I had never felt anything like it before. So I got help. I talked to my doctor, started seeing a therapist. Slowly, I started trying to bounce back. The hardest part of my daily life became the subway. There's a saying in neuroscience that neurons that fire together wire together. My brain had built this powerful association. Subway equals terror. It wasn't that I was afraid of the train itself. I was afraid of losing control of myself, of the panic coming back. I remember standing on the platform one cold February morning, watching train after train come and go, unable to make myself get on. A couple times I would get on the train only to just jump off right before the doors closed. My brain was signaling to me that it wasn't safe. And somehow I knew that if I left that platform without getting on a train, it would be 10 times harder the next day. I would be teaching my brain that the fear was justified. So I got on, my heart was pounding the whole time. I held on, we reached the next stop, and I was okay. And I did that over and over again. And that's how fear works. You have to face it or it grows. Slowly the brain rewires and relearns. Subways are not actually dangerous. Unfortunately, the anxiety kept showing up in new forms. Driving, breathing, weird sensations in my hands, tightness in my chest, grocery stores, airplanes, elevators, speaking in public. It was exhausting, and it went on for a long time. One day on the train, I was scrolling through audiobooks I already owned, and on impulse, I put something on that I'd listened to years earlier. A seminar called Mindfulness in the Brain by a neurobiologist, Dan Siegel, and the meditation teacher, Jack Kornfield. I'd heard it before, but this time I listened to it like my life depended on it. What it reminded me of, what I had somehow forgotten, was that The brain is not fixed. There's a well-established phenomena called neuroplasticity. Your brain can change at any age based on your experience and how you direct your attention. In people who practice meditation consistently, scientists have observed real, measurable growth in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for regulating emotion and calming fear. The fear center of the brain, the amygdala, actually shrinks with consistent practice. Maybe you've never heard of meditation, or maybe you've tried it, felt like it didn't work for you. This video isn't about meditation, but it is part of what helped me. It's something that I teach now. There's a lot of misconceptions about meditation, but really it just means to pay attention in a deep way to what is happening right now. It means learning how to observe your thoughts and feelings without getting lost in them. It seems like it would be the simplest thing in the world, but with practice, it's actually really powerful. So after teaching myself about mindfulness and meditation again, I felt hopeful for the first time in like a really long time. Not because it was new information. I'd known it intellectually for years, but because it gave me something to trust in. I knew that if I sat down to meditate every day, I was slowly but surely rewiring my brain. The changes wouldn't come overnight, but they would come. I could count on that. So I committed to a daily practice of meditation. Over time, I became more accepting of the anxiety itself, which sounds counterintuitive. Nobody wants to feel anxious. But that shift in my relationship with anxiety turned out to be one of the most important things that happened. See, the old version of me was desperate to not feel anxious. I hated it. I fought it constantly. I didn't realize it at the time, but fighting it just made it stronger. The version of me that came out the other side learned to do something different. It's not that I got rid of my anxiety completely. I just changed my relationship with it. When anxiety shows up now, I don't treat it like an enemy. I think of it like a smoke detector going off while I'm cooking dinner. My brain is trying to protect me. It thinks the house is on fire. And instead of panicking about the alarm, I can just say, "Thank you for trying to protect me. I see you. We're okay." That shift from fighting anxiety to changing your relationship with it is really what this whole channel is about. That's what works. It can make such a big difference. I haven't had a panic attack in over a decade. I can ride the subway, speak in public, go to the store without anxiety, and do most of the things that once felt completely out of reach. Anxiety still shows up sometimes. It probably always will. But it's just not that big of a deal anymore. That's the goal. Not the absence of anxiety, but a different relationship with it. If you're in the thick of it right now, I want you to hear this. The same capacity that got me through it is in you too. I'm not special. I just found some things that worked, and I've spent years helping other people find them too. That's what I want to do here. So in future videos, I'll go deeper into specific tools, meditation, how to work with anxious thoughts, neuroscience of fear, a lot more. If this resonated with you, subscribe, drop a comment, and you can also find me on Substack, where I offer more resources and you can support my work. There's a link in my profile. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.